Welcome to the Small Business Britain podcast with me, Karen Campbell.
And me, Michelle Evans.
And we are actually in a place.
We're on the road.
We're on the road.
Exciting.
It's very exciting. And the clue, you can see the clues behind us maybe. We have
got a red box.
A red box. We have a Great Britain flag.
We have, yeah, we've got the Union Jack. We are today in the Treasury, which is very exciting.
It's really exciting. And we've put some makeup on, which is equally as exciting, isn't it?
Yes, obviously we always look this good in our kitchen / living room. Yeah, no, we made a bit of an effort today because we have a special guest.
We do. Very excited.
Yeah, we are joined by the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, and that's the only time I'm going to say it because now I've got it out and not made it.
Yeah. It's like red lorry, yellow lorry.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Minister James Murray, welcome. Hello.
Thank you very much. No, thanks for having me on. And when people sometimes introduce me as Exchequer Secretary of the Treasury, quite a mouthful there, and they say, so what is that? And I say, it's tax. So tax minister, that's the abbreviated version, or James works just as well.
We'll stick with James for today.
Great, excellent.
We'll see how we go.
We're going to stick with James. Thank you for that, because we would not do well with that full title the whole way through, I feel, would we? It's a lot.
Yeah.
So James, first of all, before we get into the stuff, about you, tell us a bit about you. How long have you been in this position? How did you get here? What's your background? Where are you from?
So I grew up in West London, in Ealing, which is where I now represent.
Awesome.
And there's a special kind of feeling about representing where you grew up. I feel really honoured to do that. And I was elected in 2019, so this is my second term as an MP. What's actually been really good is during the first term of being an MP, it was a bit of a strange first term because just after we got elected, we went into COVID.
It was a strange time.
Yeah, it was a really strange time, obviously, for everyone.
Yeah.
Being a new MP during COVID, being an MP is so based on face-to-face interaction, with your colleagues, with your constituents, trying to go around your constituency, all that kind of thing. So doing that during COVID
must have been tough.
Was a bit hopeless.
And just in your job in general, trying to find your feet must have been so challenging.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, everyone who is previous MP said, it takes a good 6 months to work out how it all works. When you're doing that from behind a laptop, it's even more of a weird experience. But actually that meant that once the restrictions got lifted, I enjoy going to visit all the more.
Because you know what it's like not to have it.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'm able to go to schools, go to residence groups, go to local meetings and all that. And I just think, I didn't have this for the first year or so. Yeah. So I really enjoy that. With Christmas coming up, we'll have lots of Christmas visits.
Amazing. And Ealing's gorgeous, isn't it, as well? There's a lot of small businesses, a lot of incredible entrepreneurs in that area as well. So it must be so special, like you say, to represent where you grew up.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
No, it's great. I mean, actually, on a recent Small Business Saturday, I went to Pitshanger Lane, which is nice. High street in my constituency, and it's
big
one where
street.
Well, it's a really successful one. It's a really good example of how they can work well, and the businesses all work well together. And it's one where I remember going there with my grandparents when I was younger, and now going there as the MP. It's great to be able to support them.
Incredible.
So, I remember actually in COVID that year, we just thought, is Small Business Saturday going to be cancelled? Because we're so in and out of lockdowns. I'm sure you remember. We actually came out of lockdown on the Wednesday before Small Business Saturday on the Saturday. And there was a month of pent-up spend. Everyone went to a small... It was amazing.
Christmas was cracking that year, wasn't it?
Yeah, Small Business had a bit of a rubbish year, but that Small Business Saturday was huge. I'd love to see that again this year. Although I don't think we can lock everyone up for a couple of weeks beforehand.
Well, we've done it before.
I mean, never say never.
We're not going to spoil that. No, but I think I remember actually got some photos from me visiting there when it was not full lockdown, but when we still had restrictions in place. Yeah. Me kind of going around wearing the face mask and everything and all the rules, and it was a difficult time for small businesses.
Yeah, it was. But we also, I think, they felt that love from communities. I think people remembered how important those local businesses were, those high streets. They were my high street. The butcher, the baker, the fruit, the veg, I remember the lady near me who ran the bookstore, and the book she couldn't open, but you just send her a little, actually I think I just sent her a message on Twitter and she'd just drop it through the door. But she'd I'm going around delivering books because everyone's at home, so people want more books, but she'd also drop off some bread. She'd drop off some other stuff.
They went above and beyond, didn't they? And people have remembered that, I think, and they're quite loyal to those businesses. They definitely are where I'm from, where I live as well. It's amazing.
Well, this bookshop's doubled in size since.
We've got one near us, but they were the crux of the society at that point, because what the bigger stores couldn't really offer, they did, and they did get the yeast because everyone went bonkers to make bread and whatever, didn't they?
Bonkers to make bread. Yeah.
I made bread. I've never made bread in my life.
I didn't make bread
about?
because I was working very hard.
I didn't make bread because I can't. So.
The local pub started selling flour because the supermarkets all ran out, and they had on the counter they had these scales, and they were like weighing out. Look, Dodge, just telling you, like weighing out flour in the local pub. But I think that's the joy of small business. It makes me a bit emotional when we talk about how essential small businesses are and the role that they play. We do want to talk a bit about Small Business Saturday, actually, but we'll come to that in a minute. But tell me a little bit about Minister of Tax. What does that mean? What does that involve?
Yeah, so I guess there's sort of two main halves to the job. One is about tax policy, so obviously working the run up to the budget on October the 30th, and around tax policy more widely, its implementation, the detail, taking the finance bill through Parliament, all of that kind of thing. And then the other half is to do with HMRC, because as well as the policy side, there's the administration side. How do you collect tax? How do you provide better customer service, particularly better service for small businesses and other individual taxpayers? How do you make sure that service is of the quality it should be? So there's sort of two halves to it. There's the policy side and then there's the administration side. And actually, one of the things I'm really keen to do is focus as much on the administration side as the policy side. So I'm now chairing the HMRC board, which hasn't been ministerially chaired before, but I want to be much more involved in that administration side, because I think if you can simplify the administration, if you can make it more intuitive, you can make it more digital, easier for people to use, it's good for consumers, it's good for taxpayers, it's good for businesses, particularly small businesses. It helps close the tax gap. It reforms. It's a win-win in every direction. So that's why I'm so keen to be involved in that side of it too.
Fantastic.
It is. So I'm keen to talk a bit about small business and tax, without sending everyone to sleep. We're going to talk about it in a fun way. Small businesses and tax, and the HMRC thing is interesting because it's not a ministerial department. It hasn't been. But I do remember. Not to talk about COVID again, but I do remember HMRC saying to us, actually, at Small Business Britain, please get everyone to call us, please get everyone to talk to us, because we really want to help. We really want. And we talked to businesses, and they were like, they'd rather call the dentist than call HMRC. So we always say, just give them a call, have the conversation.
And when they do, they were so pleasantly surprised, and they got so much help. But it's that reticence, isn't it? And there's that, that preconception that they're not going to help you, or you're a bit scared of them, or you won't understand. And people were.
We feel the same about calling their accountant, which I also think is bonkers. Call your accountant. And that was one thing actually that we were talking to businesses a lot about after the budget, was to call their accountant. Because, and I'm really keen to get your thoughts on this as well. A lot of the headlines around the budget around national insurance, and we've done the numbers, just about, get the numbers. Actually, for a lot of micro businesses, small businesses, it was a tax cut in the budget, but the headline is really focused on the national insurance rise. So we've had a lot of conversations with small businesses over the last couple of weeks. Firstly saying, please call your accountant, do the numbers. Actually, because of the employment allowance, this is actually good news for you. But to some degree, feeling like businesses just haven't quite cottoned on to that now, and they're scared of calling their accountant because they think if I call my accountant, by osmosis,
I'm going to lose money.
I'm interested in getting your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, well, firstly, I think that's excellent advice you're giving people to talk to their accountant about the impact of the changes, because if I take a step back, I need to be upfront and say the decision around employer national insurance was one of the toughest ones we took in the budget, because we know it's a big change. It will have impacts as businesses respond to it. And so we're not shying away from the fact it was a big change. But as you point out, what we did alongside the increase in the rate and the reduction in the secondary threshold was a doubling of the employment allowance to £10,500. And that amount means that you can employ up to 4 people at national living wage without paying any national insurance. So 1 million of the smallest businesses will either have no change or actually gain in some cases. And we were really keen that, although this was a big, tough decision, to make sure we had that protection in there for the smallest businesses as well.
Yeah, and I think it's been a real challenge. We found it as a bit of a challenge to kind of get that message across. And one of the things I think there's so much in the budget this year. It was chunky. There was a lot. We read all the notes. We read the notes, and there was a lot. And kind of getting the kind of concise message across to small businesses to say, this is what it means for you. This is how we want you to look at the future. And of course, for micro businesses, please don't panic. This is actually good news. How have you found small businesses have responded to the budget, and what message would you like to give them?
Yeah. Well, some of the changes we made, particularly around the employment allowance, are things that small business representatives have been asking us about. So we think it's a positive step, as part of a difficult decision, but this part of it is positive for smaller businesses. I think the nature of the budget is that a lot of information comes out on October the 30th. You've got the main budget document, then you've got all of the adjoining documents from the OBR. You've read them all, so all of the consultations and so on, supplementary documents. There's a lot of information coming out at once. But I think it's worth sort of saying that this, and the Chancellor, has been saying this herself, very clearly. This was a big budget, and we're not going to do another one like this again.
Yeah.
The rest of this Parliament budgets will not be anywhere near on the scale. This is a big, because it is a big kind of
And
like
it was
new
overwhelming
government.
at some point, wasn't it? I think small businesses, coupled with the headlines we were being fed, just thought it was negative, whereas actually when you decipher it, there is a lot of positives.
Yeah, there's a lot. We don't want to go into lots of detail. We've done podcasts already on the budget, but rates, of course, big changes coming on that. Things coming up soon on late payments, on the small business command paper, trials on digital skills. There's help to grow. There's lots and lots of bits and bobs going on
that are positive and fantastic.
There's a lot. There is just a lot.
Yeah, and it takes people time to process the changes and to understand how it might impact them. And that's true across the board in terms of the tax changes that we've made. But I think hopefully, the work that you're doing is really crucial to helping people to understand it. And obviously, as ministers and everyone else in Parliament, we want to get that information out there so that people understand.
And it's hard, isn't it? Because you've got twofold where you have to be complex and complicated and it has to be detailed, whereas our job is to break it down into a bit more layman terms, layperson terms, to relay that to our small businesses, because they don't have a lot of time, to be honest with you, to delve into it, do they? They don't have the inclination at times. They need someone like us guys to give them that messaging.
So aside from talk to your accountant, which is always a good move, what would you say to a business, how to kind of get their head around all this?
Yeah, so I would say the big change for small businesses is around the employment allowance. And I know that when I'm talking to colleagues in Parliament about it, walk them through the difference between the secondary threshold and the employment allowance, secondary threshold per employee, employment allowance per business. Just making sure you understand the implications of that. And once it makes sense, it sticks. It makes sense. But it's just, if you haven't had to think about it before, it's worth getting your head around what that means. Because actually, the employment allowance, it's now unrestricted as well. So you don't have to worry if you're a business who's just worried about tipping over the threshold where you used to lose the employment allowance. That doesn't happen anymore. So every business can get it. So you can, any small business, whatever their size, whether they're a very small business or a slightly bigger small business, they can know they get the employment allowance. So that's a certainty. And they know it's going to be £10,500. So obviously there is a bit of work they'll need to do with accountants to work out how that impacts on all employer contributions. But I think it's worth them having a think through that. The other thing I would say as well is around business rates. Because for me and the Chancellor, sort of reforming business rates to support particularly your kind of retail, hospitality and leisure businesses on the high street is really important. And business rates takes time to change. But we set out in the budget that from April 2026 we're going to implement a tax cut for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses on high streets. So this is properties with a rateable value of less than £500,000. And I suspect most businesses know what their rateable value is, but obviously they can check that very easily online. All that information you can get online very quickly. There'll be a revaluation in April 2026, but you can get a sense of where you are. And if you're under £500,000, you'll be getting a tax cut. And actually the smallest businesses will get an even deeper tax cut than the larger ones. So we really are trying to support high streets and particularly those smaller businesses.
So we were trying to unpick all that rate stuff, because obviously for a lot of businesses it's the biggest cost actually,
and the biggest worry, isn't it?
Yeah, and bigger than rent for a lot of businesses. The general vibe we were getting is probably going up a bit in April 25 because obviously the rates relief's gone down, but then going down from April 26. So kind of like that. And one of the things we've been saying to businesses, particularly retail, hospitality, and of course they're big employers and employ a lot of employees on minimum wage as well, which also is going up. Also, I should mention right now, a lot of these changes are April next year. So it does give people a bit of time to get their head around it. You've got time to call an accountant.
Do you know what? And if you are an accountant, call your businesses, call your clients as well. It's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street. Most accountants in the UK are small businesses.
Exactly. So get in touch, and just because people are a bit nervous, so give them a little handhold.
We've been talking about business rates. I mean, gosh, I've been been running Small Business Saturday for 12 years, and we've been talking about business rates since day one. It's always
an
been,
issue.
Yeah, it's always been an issue. It's always been a challenge.
And at all the meetings that I had when we were in opposition, because I did this job in a shadow position for about 3.5 years, which was really good, because it meant that I could really kind of get to meet everyone and learn all about it before we came into office. And business rates came up, so quickly at all the meetings we had with businesses. As you say, it's one of the taxes that people, I think, needs to be reformed, needs to support the high street more actively rather than sometimes working against high street success.
I think a lot of people felt that way sometimes, didn't they? They weren't getting any favours to keep their businesses open on the high street. It was a challenge from a lot of ways, wasn't it?
And we never want businesses to think that it's online versus the high street, because particularly in 2024, 2025, it's a hybrid world. What we want is businesses to be really strong on the high street, but also to have a digital presence, to have digital skills, to think multi-channel, because that's how human beings are. But do you know how many times I've been asked, is the high street dead? Is the high street dying? The high street is not dead. I do not believe the high street is dead.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, I go around, high streets in my constituency or when I'm out doing ministerial visits, and they're the lifeblood of the community. And people want them to succeed, and that's the thing. If you talk to people, knocking on doors or bumping into people and chatting to people about the high street, everyone wants it to succeed, and that's why we feel as a government we want to back that up.
Definitely.
And I think in terms of the relationship between high streets and online, for me, it's about a level playing field. It's about saying, online plays a really big role. We all shop online, I'm sure. But it has to be a level playing field with the high streets, because it's not too complicated for any of us to say, look, we want both. We want to be able to shop online, but we also want the high street to succeed, and we need a level playing field so that works.
Definitely. And do you know where we are seeing the high streets buzzing currently? The Small Business Saturday tour.
Oh my goodness.
The team are out and about in the freezing cold all over the UK.
They were in the snow yesterday.
They were in the snow.
Actually in the snow yesterday.
But the businesses they are speaking to, off the scale, brilliant, aren't they? And
Absolutely
they are
phenomenal.
And there's such a sense of community and camaraderie, like you were talking about Ealing, that everybody supports each other. There's no us and them on a high street. Everybody, small business wise, wants to.
But I think they get
if
somebody comes to their neighbour's shop, they might then come into theirs.
Like
this
makes sense.
People don't want to lose that. That's why I always think it's a bit of a bonkers conversation that the high street's dead. I remember doing an interview on the Today programme, and they said to me, I'm going off on a tangent, I do this sometimes, and they said to me, clearly the high street is dying, what are we going to do?
Clearly it's not.
It is not. People are not going to suddenly go, do you know what, I'm never going to leave my home again. I don't want to talk to human beings. I don't want to spend time with other human beings.
And there's a time and a place for an online order. There is. When you're time poor, and we all do it, don't we? But there's nothing nicer than going into a shop, getting actual interaction with a human being, being able to touch and feel what you want to buy,
that's true,
and buying it.
Yeah, and knowing, often you know the name of the person who owns the business. Now, you must know a lot of businesses in Ealing. Are you going to be visiting them this Small Business Saturday?
Yeah, what are your plans?
I haven't yet made my plans for Saturday. I always do. I'm not quite sure, because I've got the ministerial gig now as well, whether I have to do, well, not have to do, but would want to do ministerial visits rather than local ones. I'm going to have to balance that. It's a tricky one. See how you go. But I do. I mean, I was just in actually the bookshop on Pitsanger Lane last Friday. I ordered, but it's great because Fiona, who runs it, I send her an email saying, "Can you get this book?" She emails straight back. She says, "Yep, I'll text you when it's in." And then when I was down there picking up some medication, popped in and picked it up. And it works really well. So. I don't need to wait for Small Business Saturday to go to Pitsanger Lane.
Well, every day is Small Business Saturday.
My local bookshop got me Julie Cooper very quick off the press, which I
Rivals,
appreciated.
That's had a big impact on this podcast.
Yes, but it's
I still haven't read it.
Oh, I read the later one. I think it's called. I can't remember. But that's what I'm saying. It go above and beyond.
Do you know what? I've got a local book, Ali, who runs my local bookshop. Do you always know their names? Do you know the owners?
Mine's called John.
And it's just as quick to call her and say, "Could you get this book?" as it is to order from, say, a massive online platform.
Yes.
Please insert. It's just as quick. It's not taking me any longer. I can pick up on the way to drop my daughters to school.
And you're supporting their business.
Yeah, and you have a bit of a chat with Ali, see how things are going, get a bit of gossip about the local high street.
Area.
I love that. I love all that.
Grab a coffee on the way.
Grab a coffee on the way. You always end up spending more than you think you will. And she knows as well, if I go in to get the book, I'll get something else when I'm in there.
Totally.
Love a bit of Small Business
whenever I pop in
Saturday.
there, I can't walk past. There's a cafe, Cinnamon Cafe. Can't walk past it without getting a coffee. I just, just see it too tempting.
And do you know what, that is kind of at the heart of Small Business Saturday, actually, and it's amazing. Government has been so supportive of Small Business Saturday. It's really, really exciting. There's so much coming in the next week or so, TBC. But because we know that if people make an effort for Small Business Saturday, just because they've heard it's today and they know, they will go back again and again, because you pretty much always have a good experience.
Yeah.
And so this is about economic shift. It's not just about cute pictures of cupcakes on Small Business Saturday. There will be.
There's room for that though.
There will.
Yeah.
There'll be Santa hats. There'll be rivers of mulled wine and mince pies. There always is. But this is about economic shift. And we know over the last 12 years, we know that we can shift hundreds of millions of pounds to small businesses on Small Business Saturday if people just go out, just give it a little bit of extra effort, give a little bit of extra love.
Go maybe somewhere you haven't been before. Go say hi, see what they've got. Exactly. And there's some beautiful ones. And there's nothing nicer. I think lockdown was horrible, wasn't it? But there was some good things that you actually had to go out on foot and discover what was on your doorstep. You didn't just jump in your car and go to a superstore, So do that maybe Small Business Saturday, get wrapped up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit chilly.
Take
at the
a flask
moment,
of
isn't
tea
it?
from a small business.
A flask of tea.
And off you go.
We know from our research, if people know it's Small Business Saturday, they have a high likelihood of spending.
Yeah.
It's the key thing is to tell them.
Yeah.
So we need to bang that drum.
Absolutely.
So we're looking forward to seeing where you end up, James.
Yes, yeah. No, I'll have to discuss in my office and work out where I am going to end up.
So honestly, though, sometimes with these conversations, I'm going to go to this business, and then they're like, yeah, we went to 6. We just kept going.
Yeah.
We just had this great time, so we just kept going.
And there's a bit of a vibe, isn't there? There's a bit of a euphoria around that day. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
And actually what's really nice about it, if I think about the high streets or the sort of shopping parades across my constituency, we talked a lot about Pitsanger Lane, which is like a big one and people know well. But even where my office is in North Greenford, there's a little mini parade there, sort of a dozen or so shops. The guys who run, there's a restaurant just opposite, they won an award. I popped over and saw them last Friday.
Oh, nice.
And it's a sense of community there. And when you're going in there, other people coming in, you know them. Yeah, it's just it's that connection. It's really
Oh, well, I wish you a very happy Small Business Saturday.
Thank you very much.
It's been a real delight to meet you, and thank you so much for having us in the Treasury today. It's
and
been a
for
real
taking
treat.
the time, it's been lovely. And it got us out the house and made us put some makeup on.
This is actually my colleague's office, so we've been squatting in her office. But it's
We're very grateful. We're very grateful.
behind the candelabra. Love it.
I guess we'll be back on the pod soon.
In our tracksuits.
Yeah, probably. All right. See you soon.
Thank you, James.
Thanks a lot.
Take care.